A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with yet another exciting session on technology as enabler of internal audit process. Let me tell you the good news that this we are doing under the host of Doha branch, Doha chapter of ICAI, and the chairman C. Nirlay Bhatt is there. I have three of my very revered speakers, C. Amit Gupta, C. Rajeshwarji, C. Ankur Gupta, who would take us through the entire session. And I also have with me the moderator of the session, who is CA Vaishali. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this great exciting session. Hope you would go home more enlightened. Over to Vaishali for further proceedings of the session. Vaishali, please take over.
Thank you so much, sir. Good evening, everyone. I welcome all of our organizers, hosting body, faculty members, and the members who have joined us as an audience. I believe all of you and your family members are staying safe and healthy. To begin our session, we have with us, as Sir mentioned, our hosting body of today's event, Sir C.A. Nirlay Bhatt. Giving a brief introduction regarding C.A. Nirlay Bhatt, sir, he's currently with Taseer Group in Qatar, carries the diverse experience of 14 years in banking, infrastructure, and trading sectors with the reputed organizations in India and Qatar. He feels that Indian CAs are industry leader and their sound technical knowledge and practical exposure, which provide a competitive edge to CAs across the sector. C.A. Nirlay is a prolific communicator and carries a flair in written and oral communication, as he has been speaker on various professional events for the members and students, and has also contributed professional articles in various magazines and journals. He is privileged to be part of the management committee since term 2014-15 and firmly believes in the phrase that be the change you wish to see in the world. I would welcome Nirlay sir and would request him to share his words and begin our today's session. So over to you.
Respected Chairman of the IASB CA Charanjit C. Nanda sir, speakers of the evening CA Rajeshwar Sundaresan sir, CA Ankur Gupta ji and CA Anil Gupta ji, and hundreds of chartered accountants who are attending the session from various parts of the world. A virtual but warm namaskar from Doha, Qatar. And thank you, CA Vaishali, for this nice introduction. Let me begin by first thanking prestigious Internal Audit Standard Board Chairman, CA Charanjit Nanda sir, for granting us the approval to host the event to the Doha chapter. I have been listening Charanjit sir, I would say before joining CA, as a CA student, after becoming a CA, and now also as a speaker to host this event under his patronage. It's an amazing to see how strategically he is leading IASB and also Committee on Management Accounting. Thank you, sir, for your support and guidance, as always, and maybe since 2 decades, I would say. Friends, I have the honor to serve the Doha chapter of ICAI, the oldest overseas chapters among 41 overseas chapters of ICAI, which was established in 1981. With the support of the ICAI leadership, we are able to significantly expand the ICAI's footprints in this tiny but wealthy Middle Eastern country, Qatar. More than 400 members occupy the leading positions and are decision makers in the reputed organization in Qatar, and they belong to a very diverse domain and serve the organization which has also spread across different business sectors, such as oil and gas, consulting, banks and financial institutions, infrastructure and retail, to name a few. We are quite mindful of our identity as an Indian CS and ensure that the interest of this great institute of ICAI is upheld in an utmost manner in all our conducts. And that's how we all have raised the goodwill of the chapter very high in the eyes of foreign authorities. We organize events of varied nature like professional events, summits, workshops, international conference, family events, career counseling event for the students. And Doha is also one of the 4 or 5 exam centers for our beloved students. The path-breaking development is the Union Cabinet has approved the signing of Memorandum of Understanding between ICAI and Qatari Financial Center Authority, which is a financial regulator in Qatar. That will open up many opportunities for the financial professionals and entrepreneurs who wish to set up the practices and businesses in Qatar. Accounting and financial services has been announced as a champion service sector. So this development is all the more historic. Friends, today we have 3 sessions from the learned speakers. First topic is digitization, the role of internal auditors in adding value to the business. Friends, those who have done CAs like 20 years before, like me, would be knowing or would be working in the Tele era. Tele was selling like a hot cake at that point of time. Then followed by Microsoft. And then came ERP and its various versions. Further came SAP, and now we are into robotics. Artificial intelligence and Internet over things are also not very far. Friends, technology is constantly evolving itself. The question we have to ask ourselves, like technology, have we also become smarter over these years? Otherwise, the same technology which was invented by us is all set to replace us. ICAI has, in this regard, rightly put the thrust on the reskilling and upskilling of the professionals. Our next topic is very thoughtful, harnessing the value of internal audit, and which will be conducted by the past chairman of Doha chapter, extremely learned global professional, I would say, great orator and my mentor, CA Rajeshwar Sundaresan sir. And as he always been emphasizing with his, I think, the experience of more than 3 decades, that internal audit now is no more a traditional post-mortem exercise, but more of a function which can strengthen the governance practices, is more of a risk-based and constantly evolving domain, and has significant interface with finance, IT, HR, marketing, production, and all these functions. Internal auditor can't operate in a silo and should constantly add value to the organization in terms of improved bottom line, increased control mechanism, and ideal governance practices. And that's why in India and elsewhere across the world, the new function GRC, governance, risk, and control, is actually a backbone of the enterprise success. Then we have internal audit 3.0, a very, very novel topic, I would say, with trinity of 3 things: assure, advise, and anticipate, which are 3 aspects of internal audit. So CA friends, let's have in mind the acronym CA means challenge accepted. And another one I would add is constantly adaptable in view of upskilling, which is required in ever-changing business scenario. Friends, let's have a stimulating deliberation and knowledge sharing. Over to you, CA Vaishali.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable words. Moving forward, among our esteemed and knowledgeable faculty members on the panel today, I would like to invite CA Charanjot Singh Nanda, sir. CA Charanjot Singh Nanda, sir, is a very senior qualified chartered accountant who has contributed to our esteemed Institute of Chartered Accountants of India in the form of Central Council member from a very long time. And not just that, he still is Central Council member for the term 2019 and 2022. Additionally, he is also chairing the Internal Audit Standard Boards of ICAI, chairman of Committee of Management Accounting of ICAI, vice chairman of Continuing Professional Education Committee, member of board of 26 committees of the ICAI. I would like to request Sir CA Charanjot Singh Nanda, sir, to come forward and address the keynotes.
Thanks, Vaishali, for such a nice introduction. So the chairman of Doha chapter, one of our oldest chapter, CA Nirlay Bhatt. Let me tell you that the institute is very lucky to have so many friends across in the globe, right from 146 branches, 46 chapters, so many representative offices. The institute is scaling newer heights every day. You have so many friends, and I'm reminded of a couplet which says, काबिल दोस्तों का होना भी शायद तकदीर होती है. काबिल दोस्तों का होना भी शायद तकदीर होती है. बहुत कम लोगों के हाथों में ये लकीर होती है. So we are lucky, we thank the God Almighty that we have friends who always support us and put us in the right perspective. Your board, which was set up in the year 2004, essentially is concerned with giving you the quality programs, honing of technical skills, putting you at a parlance where you start understanding complex things and start them emulating and putting in your profession so that you are able to effectively serve not only your clients or stakeholders, but to the regulators and government also. So give me a second so that I'm able to present my keynote address. I'll just share the screen for a second. Thank you. My screen is visible. Can I start now? Is my screen
Yes,
visible?
sir, visible.
Yes,
Great.
Yes, sir, yes.
Great. So Mr. Nirlep gave an overview of the three topics. The first is digitization, role of internal auditors in adding value to business. The second is harnessing the value of internal audit, and third is new paradigms of internal audit, IA 3.0. Ladies and gentlemen, when you speak of digitization, you understand certain things, you have a notion in your mind. But very frankly, that notion has graduated to such levels that it is able to effectively contribute to the cause of providing quality services. The first is data analysis and visualization. ACL analytics for task automation and auditing and database platforms like Oracle database and SQL Server. Very, very important. The second is process automation. The process weaknesses, the process improvisation are one of the very important areas where an internal auditor has to continuously struggle. So with robotic process automation, RPA, businesses can automate rules-based business processes. Everything has to be in order. Everything has to be the protocol which is defined. And therefore, very minimal chances of human intervention leading to error, which has to be regretted at a later stage. The third is analytics tools. Analytics tools like data mining, machine learning, predictive analysis. You predict what is going to happen to identify the trends, report to the board or to the audit committee as the case may be, generate predictive insights or optimize for a desired outcome. Everything has to be very meticulously planned, synchronized, and then put in place so that the results start flowing in. Artificial intelligence. We have heard a lot about it. Artificial intelligence is to automate tasks that previously would have required human intelligence. Something which will bring out, you can call it exception reporting, that conclusion, the inference which you draw from the data. In today's time, data is the most important thing. And in such times, the most important thing is to draw inference from the data. The same set of data, if it is distributed to 10 groups, the same set of data, if it is distributed to 10 groups, it will have different results. May I request all to please put their mics on mute. It will stop the echoing. Now, what is the role of internal auditor in digitization? First, deliver more value. Internal audit essentially is a management function, and our most important sacred duty is to add value to the entire perspective. And digitization delivers value. Second, more integrated risk approach. Risk is imminent with any business. I got a call from a gentleman who said, Mr. Nanda, can you tell me any business which has no risk? I said, sir, if you are able to identify one, please let us know. I will ask my clients to follow that. But in reality, there is no risk. I have of the firm view that where there is no risk, there is no opportunity, no rewards, no business. Risk has to remain in order to create opportunities. But we as internal auditors have to define it, calculated risk so that the corporate or entity can flourish. Audit process controls more effectively. The basic contention of internal audit is to have a control environment. So that process control in an effective fashion is made possible by digitization, focusing more on strategic risk. Let me tell you, if you all love cricket like I do, if you have to hit a century, you need at least 70 or minimum 50 good shots. But if you have to go out, you need only one bad shot and you're out of the pavilion. Strategic risk is a similar thing. If you want to create a strategy of success, all contours need to be thoroughly emphasized, thoroughly looked upon. Continuous flow of data and information. Yes, for any particular facet, what data you need, in what format you need, with what parameters you need has to come to you. Detailed analysis. In order to navigate, bring the board or to the audit committee at a place where it understands how it has to tackle or counter its competitors. Detailed analysis will give the power to navigate, the power to create an ecosystem where all of us can work. The second session is harnessing the value of internal audit. We all understand that internal auditors need to deal with a range of stakeholders, and those stakeholders potentially have different expectations. And the role of internal audit essentially is to match those expectations. The expectation gap needs to be bridged. Capturing and communicating internal audit value. How do you do that? You first identify stakeholder value, drivers, and needs. You identify what is required, what are the values, drivers, needs. Then you have to understand the risks and opportunities. Strategic, financial, operational, compliance. All these risks and opportunities have to be understood. You have to ensure that if risk is identified, it needs to be mitigated. And in future also, if any risk emerges, it needs to be effectively dealt with. The third is to evaluate the impact to stakeholder value. Yes, what will the impact of risk? What will the impact of communication to the stakeholder value? That is very important. And last is value enhancement, strategic, tactical value protection. Very, very important. How you add value, how the value is enhanced by your perspective. We don't have to go and do post-mortem. It has to be concurrent movement. The third is new paradigms of internal audit, IA 3.0. Now, internal audit is a key pillar of organizations' changing role of internal audit. Roles of internal audit have evolved beyond the regulatory compliance responsibilities. It is an ever-evolving role. You can't sit back and say, this is my role. The roles are ever demanding. They want people with aptitude, people with a sense, rare sense or instinct of performance, of credence to match this. With new expectations from stakeholders and business leaders, the finance function is getting a major lift to support organization value creation. This change signifies that in internal audit, no chain can be strongest than its weakest point. A small weakness would lead to the collapse of the great conglomerate. And internal auditing is expected to focus more on assessing future risks than telling companies what they did wrong in the past. Focus on future risks. Ways and means to mitigate them is important rather than going back and speaking about the past. Digital assets, which have already begun to transform internal audit work and they are about to revolutionize it. We have been holding series on technology. Yes, technology is a very important facet to bring about a revolution in the field of internal audit, which is one of the sunrise area present in today's corporate world. Skills and capabilities which position internal audit to improve the interface with stakeholders and better meet their needs. Very, very important. Your skills and opportunities will ensure how you have to move ahead and position the internal audit to a great success ladder. The third is enablers. Yes, enablers which engage the system to deliver new value in desirable ways. Very, very important. Enable the entire system, percolate the philosophy, the mission of the management at all levels, so all are equal to coherently work, together work for achieving those objectives. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hereby finish my presentation, but I would like to tell you one thing very importantly. The time has come when we all have to work and create an ecosystem whereby new joinees are able to understand this profession, and senior and larger people with larger perspective are able to lead this profession and take it 1% heights. We have three of my most revered speakers of today's session, C. Rajeshwar sir, who is the past chairman of Doha chapter, C. Amit Gupta and C. Ankur Gupta. Both of them, they have done several joint sessions with us to take you to a parlance where you start understanding and also appreciating how internal audit is an ever evolving subject and what value add technology can do to it. So, not standing between you and the entire great three speakers, I would give the dais back to Madam Vaishali Sharma for further proceedings. Vaishali, the dais is all yours now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for sharing the major agenda items of today's technical session and the related information around it. So let's begin with today's technical session. And as Sir mentioned, that our first technical session would be presented by CA Ankur Gupta. CA Ankur Gupta, who is a qualified chartered accountant with more than 10 years of experience in internal audit, risk assessments, process improvements, internal control evaluation, SOX readiness, and preparation of standard operation practices. He has significant exposure in handling internal financial controls, review at major manufacturing clients in line with the requirement of Companies Act 2013. He has authorized articles of institute on the agile internal audit methodologies. He has also significant experience in providing process improvement and internal control evaluation services to various sectors such as FMCG, pharma, cement, consumer electronics, energy and resources, and textile, among others. He has been a part of international assignments in USA, Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Egypt. So I would love to request CA Ankur Gupta sir to come and take the first technical session, which would be around role of internal audit in adding value to business. Sir, over to you.
Thanks, Vaishali, and hello, good evening, everyone. Hope all of you are doing safe. Arti, if you could just put on my presentation, that would be great. Yeah, the first slide, please. Perfect. So, before starting off, I would like to thank Nanda sir, first of all, for giving this opportunity and always coming up with interesting topics for the members of the institute, all the members of the Internal Audit Standards Board, the Doha chapter of ICAI, and my fellow senior speakers for this insightful session through which we are able to connect with each other. Today, what we have is a very interesting topic to discuss on. The topic is digitization, role of internal audit in adding value to the business. So, as rightly briefed by Nanda sir also, that today, gone are the days where internal auditors could live with the traditional knowledge of accounts, finance, or basic operations. With the increasing expectations from auditors to add value to the business, the need to adapt to new technologies has increased tremendously. And the race towards business model digitization had already begun in more or less all industries due to the explosion of various technologies in the past. But then what has happened is due to the pandemic and the coronavirus outbreak, organizations and governments all around have started introducing measures to instill new forms of behavior, which has sort of started also inculcating the new technologies gaining pace in the market. The situation has pushed a large number of companies on a global scale to re-examine their digital strategies and accelerate the process of transformation. This has also led to internal auditors being pushed to learn these new methods. So it's important for internal auditors today to be aware of what are the new technologies in the market and also to learn and adapt fast and to add value to the business while these technologies are being adopted by the companies that they work for. So in today's session, Arti, if you could move to the next slide. Thank you. So in today's session, I will be focusing on the following aspects. I will give you a bit of an introduction about the session, the benefits of digitalization, some of the select digital methods, which are relevant in today's time. What is the role of internal auditor? The digitalization framework, how the transformation is happening, the adopting disruptors in today's time, and the difference between the traditional and digital system. And finally, the most important aspect around what can internal audit do or what internal audit needs to do in today's time. So this is the broad coverage which I'm going to do today. So moving on to the next slide, slide number 3 talks about the introduction. So Arti, next slide. Yeah, thank you. So if you see, business processes today are in a flux as people, process, data, technology, everything is transforming. These major changes have presented a threat that overall control environment may degrade if the risk of transformation are not proactively identified and prevented. Also, the acceleration of digitalization in business is transforming internal audit at a rapid rate. How to audit is also changing with a focus on catching up to the digital developments. If you see, IE has already begun moving from providing assurance looking at certain samples and transaction-based audit, to stepping into an advisory role based on things like continuous controls monitoring. Now IA needs to double up, where through digital reinvention, it needs to upgrade tools, technologies, and also the methods in which it does its audit. Like business stakeholders, internal auditors are also trying to figure out how the changes in technology and the business environment are affecting organizations, and how to beneficially harness and leverage the opportunities generated by these digital technologies. So, if you think about it, if you see today's workplace and the way today work is happening, and this is a small time map which I've given, where for a typical CFO in a traditional environment, and what's the difference today, what happens is when a company has adopted very latest technologies, this is a this is a time map which talks about how a typical CFO day starts, where at 5 a.m. a blockchain labeled value transfer solution automatically settles all the open invoices with the payments in digital currency, and a RPA system or a robo system in the ERP begins populating the net revenue report, and output is given to analytics engine. Within an hour, the data from the analytics engine is staged in a analytics software like Tableau or BI server, and dashboards are refreshed. Then in about an hour, maybe NLG, which is called the natural language generator, will end up adding narratives to those dashboards. It will start explaining the dashboards automatically through the system. By 8 p.m., the CFO already has access to the updated reports and narratives as soon as he arrives in the office. Within maybe 10 minutes, he can start interacting with those dashboards, with those narratives, and he can drill down the reports. And within maybe 5 minutes of time, the CFO can further drill down into things like cost variance analysis, and also look for things like dropping margins. So if you see, in a traditional day at office, a CFO would probably be starting his office at 8:15, whereas here he's already making decisions at 8:15 basis reports which are readily available to him, dashboards which are readily available to him. The speed and accuracy with which information is passing and decisions are being made are changing, for which IA needs to be prepared. In a scenario like this, what IA needs to do is it needs to ensure that whatever decision making is being done by the CFO at 8:15 through the base of the dashboards, which is dependent on the various technologies like blockchain and NLG and all those sort of things, those Yep, thank you. So, in terms of digitalization, if you see the benefits, we all know about it. Those are huge benefits. Users are becoming, believers, and the promise of faster, cheaper, and better data has become a reality. There are different kinds of benefits which organizations are seeing by adopting such digital methods. The number one is the improved accuracy and elimination of human error, and removing mundane tasks from workers. Today, what is happening is we are seeing tremendously in most of the large organizations, things like something like accounts payable. People are adopting bots and RPAs in the accounts payable cycle, where automatically the complete invoice processing is happening and the manual intervention is going down. So that is also improving the accuracy, and the human error, which we used to see earlier, is getting reduced. Similarly, early detection of exceptions is happening through continuous monitoring. So earlier, what would happen in a traditional environment is that on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, you would have dashboards or some sort of audit happening, and that is when the errors would come out. But today, on a daily basis, as I discussed in the previous slide, on a daily basis, you have such dashboards coming out, whereby the management in itself is taking informed decisions and detecting errors. So for internal auditors, by the time they come into the picture, probably management has already seen and rectified those errors. Similarly, cost saving and better utilization of resources, that is happening not only for audit resources but also for company resources, where due to all the latest technologies, also not only in finance and accounts and other things, but also in shop floor in manufacturing, the resource utilization has increased tremendously. And lastly, the potential to extend the solution to the first and second line of defense. So, we keep on talking about the first and second line of defense. What is happening is that they are getting more and more strengthened. So, whenever you are going for internal audit in an organization where digital technologies have been adopted by the first and second lines of defense, for us to add value to those organizations becomes difficult if we have not really adopted to those technologies, because the first and second line of defense have already worked on it and made all those improvements. So by the time we learn those technologies, probably the audit would get over. So these were just some of the benefits which we are seeing in today's time in terms of the digitalization. In this slide, what I have done is I've given some brief note on the various methods of in which digital assets are being built. If you see, IA needs to truly adopt the disruptions and use all available technology to reinvent itself. Mainstream business processes are transformed through things like RPA, machine learning, AI, and IA needs to step up its game and leverage similar tools and technologies to create a continuous audit framework that can quickly identify anomalies from the data sets. So listed here are 12 latest technologies or digital assets which are being built by organizations. It would be difficult to explain each one of them, in this short presentation, because each of them is a separate subject in itself. But I would just touch upon, things like text mining and NLP or speech analytics. Today, many organizations are building digital assets around speech analytics, where, let's say, for example, there is a call center, and they are getting continuous calls from the customers with regards to grievances or with regards to orders and things like that. And the company business, something like a telecom business or a e-commerce business, is completely dependent on that call center. Through speech analytics, through automated tools, companies are able to identify the gray areas and the loopholes in those and the production is being automated through that Internet of Things. Similarly, we all know about cloud computing, what cloud has done to the complete universe of IT, where today gone are the days when you have those hard disks and hard drives. Everything is on cloud right now. Even the big ERPs like SAP and Oracle are completely out cloud based now. And in the future, you would see more and more things moving to cloud, where the automation of data and the transfer of data would keep on getting faster. Similarly, network analytics, geospatial analytics, these are all very interesting topics. For me, what I believe is, as internal auditors, it is important for us to be aware about these digital methods. It is just not possible for us to be experts in all of them, because there are subject matter experts in each of them. But at least we should be aware about each of them. What are these technologies in the market? You can easily Google about them, keep on reading about them. You can also read about which companies are adopting which sort of analytics. Things like data visualization. Today, most of the companies are using tools like Power BI or Alteryx or things like that to visualize the data. Imagine a company like a telecom company which has like crores of customers. The amount of data which they are generating is huge, and through the data visualization tools, they are able to place the data in a visual context for the uh, consumption of the management in a much better way than before. Similarly, RPA, as I mentioned, RPA is completely mimicking the human behavior and automating the parts of repeatable processes. This was just about the select digital methods that we have. And you can read about some of them on the internet, and you would get more and more idea about them. Next slide, please. Yeah. So in terms of role of internal auditor, where does internal auditor fit in the today's times? If you see for a few years now, there has been a growing discussion around digital transformation. A lot of people see the word digital and immediately tune that it's a IT thing. But what is critical to understand is that digital transformation centers on the realization that technology underlines almost everything organizations do, and that business strategy must evolve to leverage the opportunities presented by the pace of technology. Today, if you see most of the organizations, in most of the strategy documents or annual reports or management interviews, you will listen to the term technology and digital again and again, because everything today, all these strategies are being, digital assets are the backbone of each and every strategy. Today, the operating models of most of valuable business in the world rely on the internet, and all the employees must have that expert knowledge of the internet and digital assets to thrive on it. Also, it is imperative to transform the businesses because we are experiencing three significant changes at the same time. One is changes to stakeholder and client demand. As you will see in the presentations coming forward, that the aspect of adding value by the internal auditors is again and again increasing. The amount of responsibility and liability being placed on the boards and audit committees, and also the growing interest in the involvement in strategy and oversight of risk management. Internal audit has a lot of gap to fill. That's why the expectations from auditors are increasing again and again. Similarly, the competitive landscape is changing. Today, what is happening is there are not only internal auditors who are talking to the board or audit committees. Internal auditor is one of the agencies which is talking to the audit committee. You have the chief risk officer, compliance officers, information officers. So many people who are talking to the audit committee and building connect with the audit committee. So what is happening is internal auditors sometimes are getting blurred as the second line of defense against the audit committee. That is why it is important for internal auditors to be relevant in today's time. And the third and the most important, as I mentioned, is the changes to the technology. What is happening is that due to the different technologies, it is important that internal auditors keep pace with what is happening around the world. So with the change in stakeholder demands, competitive landscape, change in tools and technologies, role of internal auditors have changed and increased. Now, internal auditors play a pivotal role in digital journey of the organization. So there are three ways in which we can, add value, and it can be broadly categorized into three methods. One is digitalization framework. The second is the digital transformation, and third is adopting the disruptors. These are the three broad aspects where I can, divide the role of internal auditor. So if I move to the next slide, which is digitalization framework. Arti, next slide. Yeah, thank you. So while there is no hard and fast rules governing the design of digital framework, leading practices do exist. The following digital framework provides organization with a tool to understand the current digital workspace and identify areas of opportunity to support a better way of doing business, and also helps them think holistically. So how does digital framework work? There are broadly four aspects. The first is collaborate, communicate, and connect. So the digital workspace is actually all about employees' ability to do their job by collaborating, communicating, connecting with each other. The goal is to make productive business transactions and business relationships. So collaborate is to solve business problems and operate productively. Communication is the way information is passing through the organization. It can be through one or multiple tools, and to ensure that the right information reaches the right audience. And connections are employees having tools which allow them to connect across the organization. So the digital framework delivers on these goals by fostering a stronger sense of culture and community within the workspace. The second aspect is technology, the digital toolbox. So technology also enables the digital workspace in which each organization already has a digital workspace toolbox with different tools. So depending upon the industry or the business needs, the tool need to support digital workspace. So you need to have the adequate infrastructure to support the digitalization in an organization. The third and the fourth, which is the most important, the control, governance, risk and compliance. We already talk about GRC, and that is a term which is increasingly being used by many companies, not only the big ones, but the mid-sized ones also. And the effective use of technologies underpinned by appropriate controls. So this means that organization must support digital workplace with appropriate governance structure management processes. The flow of information should be correct. The roles and responsibilities should be adequately defined. and the training to the employees should be enough for them to understand the requirements from the GRC culture. Similarly, the area of risk mitigation and compliance is very important, where how are you managing the information monitoring and collection, the complete crisis management part, and also the policy training to the employees with regards to risk mitigation. The last aspect in terms of the framework is the business drivers and the measurable business value. So, as with core initiative, it is also essential for businesses to drive the digital workspace, to deliver necessary benefits and direction of the organization, to guide the direction of digital framework. So it can be through various aspects, maybe increasing the revenue, reducing operational cost, enhancing innovation, increasing agility, raising productivity, and things like that. But the various business drivers are the ones which would inculcate the process of digital, transformation happening in an organization. These were the four aspects as far as the digitalization framework is concerned. Next slide, please. Arti, if you could move to the next slide. Yeah, thank you. So, in terms of digital transformation, it is relatively a new concept, and the fact that we still do not know much about it. The one thing we do know for certain about digital transformation is that it is a journey with various blind spots. The executives of many companies are struggling today to understand what digital transformation really means in terms of the scope and intensity of change and what will be the repercussions of the specific cases. On one hand, digital transformation may be seen as the process of using digital technologies to create new or modify the existing business models, or also to disrupt the industry in itself. Also, digital transformation is much more than that in terms of the companies are embracing new culture, structure, processes, aligning them to IT architecture, resulting in comprehensive digital solutions. So, as already stated, the journey of digital transformation is not yet well known, but a high level roadmap is usually made based on the business architecture concept, which consists of four phases. The first is assessing current system as well as external internal situation. So in any company, when we talk about digital transformation happening, and we see a lot of such news item in the various business newspapers or social media that this company has gone for digital transformation. It's a long journey, and if I talk about the first step for the transformation, it is understanding the current system as well as the external and internal situation. In any scenario, assessing the existing as is state is most important, where you see and prioritize the stakeholder needs. What is the current system? You analyze the digital technology which is suitable for the organization. You analyze whether the people can accept a certain transformation or not, and things like that. Then you move to the second part where you develop a strategy and assess business impact. So you define business scenarios, you define target business segments, and you develop a to-be business model. Post which a goal is developed, and you analyze the business impact through the transformation which will come. Once you have done that, you architect the business solution. So complete business solution architecture comes as the third stage, where you design the to-be organization structure, what will be the value chain processes through the transformation, and you visualize the complete IT structure. Going to the fourth phase, which is actually establishing the initiative and deploying the solution. So if you see, before actually establishing any digital innovation, there is a lot of work which needs to be done in the first three phases. The fourth phase talks about establishing initiative, where you ensure that you define various initiatives based on the objectives. You prioritize initiatives. Let's say for a company which is going on a complete transformation of digital assets, they might prioritize things which directly touch their revenue, and post that they might prioritize things which touch the operations or the finance part of things. So that prioritization is very important, for which you create a project plan, and then you evaluate, you implement it, and finally you evaluate the level of success. So this is the complete structure as far as the digital transformation is concerned. Now, for internal auditors, while any such transformation is happening in an organization, it is important, one, to be aware of such a transformation, to see what impact will it have as far as the risks are concerned to that organization, and to include those in your internal audit scope. and also wherever possible, be part of that transformation, not only from the supporting aspect of the management, but also to ensure that any risk and controls which are any risk mitigation or controls which are required while that transformation is happening is actually being looked into. And you don't have a transformation happening without the focus on things like GRC. So this is about digital transformation. The third aspect, Aarti, next slide, please. Yeah, the third aspect is about adopting disruptors. So if you see in today's time, we have already talked about there are many disruptors which are coming, and IA needs to truly adopt to the disruptions and use all available technology to reinvent itself. If you see the mainstream business processes are transformed through things like RPA, machine learning, AI. IA also needs to step up its game and leverage similar tools and technologies to create a continuous audit framework. So if you categorize these disruptors, it will essentially go into two things. One is the core modernization, and the second is exponentials. So in terms of the core modernization, these are the things which are actually happening today and happening fast. They are, around you and around your companies. So things like cloud. So cloud computing, we have talked about. It's on-demand availability of computer resources, especially data storage, computing power, without direct active management by the user. Visualization, we have talked about it, how data visualization is happening and how businesses are using it. Process robotics, so any technology which allows today to configure computer software to emulate, integrate the actions of humans is process robotics. So you have things like, for example, in a company where in a utility company where earlier, if you go for a customer registration, the process would be completely manual, where someone would fill up the form, then someone would update that form in the system, and the customer master would open up. Today, organizations are adopting robotics for it, where everything is happening online. You go online, you fill a form, and automatically the system creates a customer master for you. So that robotics is happening today, and a lot of companies adopted it. Similarly, Internet of Things is something we spoke about earlier. In terms of the exponentials, these are something which are emerging quickly. You might see them in some of the organizations, you might not, but maybe in the next few years, you would see these technologies moving to the core technologies also. Things like AR, VR, augmented reality is something which is very active today in not only in business but in other aspects also. And businesses are adopting to AR and VR. Advanced analytics is again something which businesses are using to discover deeper insights through the data that they already have. We all know, a lot of companies are talking about big data and things like that. In-memory computing, blockchain, these are all the aspects which in today's time are technology disruptors, and they're emerging quickly. And for us, it is important, to be aware about what are these aspects and what are these technologies which our clients or the companies that we work for are adopting, and maybe if possible, build up skills to learn some of these. Aarti, next slide. Yeah, so in terms of traditional and digital system, so companies with digital systems are far ahead if you see from the ones which are still on the traditional systems. These companies, by their nature, their business is built around technology and tools. Their communication processes, culture are all supported by digital technologies. And also at the same time, traditional businesses are based on paper. You see a lot of organizations which do not adapt to digital means, are still based on the paper system, on the old methods, are slowly losing pace as far as the young startups and the young businesses are really picking up pace. To give an example, if you see a supply chain network or if you see a supply chain process in any of the companies, a traditional setup, all the sub processes will work individually without any interconnection or flow of information. So any failure of one may lead to loss of the company in the other aspect. So if you see, this is a value chain which I've given from the develop, plan to the support phase, where at various phases in a traditional supply chain scenario, there are loopholes, things like not having visibility to supplier inventory, inaccurate inventory data, unable to reroute results of fresh food and things like that. These are aspects which are difficult to manage as far as traditional supply chain is concerned. Whereas in a modern digital supply chain network, you would see that all these processes are interlinked with the flow of critical information at every level. It is completely interlinked. One step talks to the other, and this synchronization is seamless. That is where it happens. Where in a supply chain network, you can predict increase in demand. You can accurately define the inventory levels and plan the inventory. You have a rapid response to a rerouting of perishables or other items or critical items, and all the decisions are data driven. So this is just a difference between a traditional and digital setup. For us internal auditors, obviously, even if a company is on traditional setup, we can always audit them. But for a company which is under a digital setup or where modern tools have been implemented, our audit also needs to be modernized in that aspect. Arti, next slide. Yeah, so this is the last slide that I have, which talks about what eigen needs to do. So in terms of digitalization, it is rushing an evaluation that is expanding the role of internal audit. Traditionally, auditors have focused on oversight role, ensuring protocols or processes, controls, performance measures, and also seeing whether all the transactions are in order or not. But for us, for auditors, internal auditors, they need to move even further and develop foresight to determine whether an organization is capable of addressing future risks, which the digitalization is evoking in an organization. So the three concepts which internal auditors need to get right away and adopt is one is understand the difference between digitalization and automation. When I talk a lot of people and a lot of people talk about a lot of digital thing is happening, they often confuse it with automation. These are two completely different aspects. If you see, there was also an informal poll which happened during a recent internal audit webinar, and nearly three-quarters of more than 1,000 participants affirmed that internal audit function in the organization understood the concept of digitalization. However, as I mentioned, that it is more confused with fundamental business process automation. And most of these responses are probably not aware whether they are talking about automation or whether they are talking about core digital assets. So automation typically is a simplification of a process which improves efficiency and effectiveness. For example, instead of a paper statement, we have replaced it with emails or electronic solutions. So that is automation. But if I talk about digitalization, it is much wider. It is the adoption of technology to radically improve the performance and reach of an enterprise to generate efficiencies. So things like cloud computing, Internet of Things, these are the things which come under digitalization. So if your organization has done a small automation here and there, or some reconciliation has been automated or things like that, you cannot really call it a digital transformation. But if your organization has or your client has developed things like RPA or Internet of Things and things like that, that is what comes under the purview of digital assets or digitalization. So it is important to understand the difference first of all. The second is to understand organization's strategy and the risk which is coming up. So for us internal auditors, they need to clearly ensure that they comprehend the scope and aim of the digital efforts of any client or organization. We also need to determine whether the organization is following a broad and cohesive strategy, ensuring that all the efforts are actually pushed to ensure that the overall objective of the organization is met. Also, there are a lot of new age risks which are coming from the perspective of this digital revolution. IT risk will be amplified in a business function and may appear in areas which have not received past attention. For example, marketing and customer service, where massive volume of sensitive data like income, health records of the customers are collected. These are the areas where now a lot of IP related risk is there, where internal auditors need to look into. Operational risk may intensify, causing pressure on prices, margins, which again leads to new risk. You might have things which earlier used to happen through various paperwork or approvals, now completely dependent on a bot or a robo in the system, which auditors need to be aware of, and they need to be aware of the risk which can happen when a configuration of RPA goes wrong, and that needs to be part of the internal audit scope. And the third and the most important, this is something which I tell everyone today and which I am also trying to do, is building the digital skills. We need to be aware, and as some of my earlier speakers spoke about that, when we did our chartered accountancy and when we completed our studies, the technology was at one level. It has moved up like anything. So we cannot, do internal audit or any kind of audit or work or consulting work for our clients without developing our skills. So it is important for us to continuously improve on the digital skills. This may be by reading, this may be by going through training sessions, but to understand what is actually happening. In most of the webinars or most of the surveys which are happening, one thing which is coming out is internal auditors are probably not keeping pace with the revolution of that digital has brought in. That is something which is very important. Learning things like RPA or analytics, advanced analytics. Most of the analytics that internal auditors do today is on MS Excel. But if you see Power BI, Alteryx, and Tableau, and all these technologies have come up, which we need to learn to ensure that we keep pace with what the business is doing. So this was a broad presentation that I had in terms of the complete digital scenario and what internal audit role is. It's a very wide subject and difficult to talk about it in the 45 minutes. But what I've tried to do is speak about the various technologies and what internal auditors need to do. For me to summarize, what I'll say is that the role of internal auditors today is something where we are not only assuring the client, but we are really advising and ensuring that the future risk of the organization that we work for are also taken care of. And in that scenario, if our if the management or if the companies that we work for are completely on the digital methods, it's important for us also to adapt to those needs. So that was it from my side. I thank you all. And I think we have a separate round of Q&A at the end of the session. So would be happy to take any questions if there are any with regards to my presentation. So back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Being a professional, it's really important to understand that how the digital environment is impacting our profession and our business, and how we need to be aware about the digital environment around us, which is ultimately going to impact our profession. So with that perspective, I believe that this presentation was very informative, personally and professionally. Moving forward to our next session, which will be given by CA Rajeshwar Sundarasan. He is a very senior chartered accountant, and in addition to that, he holds several certifications such as CIA, CISA, CFA, CCSA, CFSA, CGAP, and CRMA. He's a past chairman of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, Qatar chapter. He has presented in chapter seminars, was an expert panelist, panel moderator, etc. at the international conferences of the ICAI Doha chapter. He is associated with the chapter of over 2 decades. The chapter bestowed the prestigious CA Professional Achiever Award 2017 for professional achievements and contributions to him. In the Institute of Internal Auditors Qatar chapter, he is one of the founder, a board member since inception, contact person, chief advisor, and the past president. Rajeshwar is appointed to IIA Board's Global Advocacy Advisory Council for term 2021 to 2023. He was also a member of IIA's Global Committee as Research and Educational Advisor for term 2016 and 19. I would like to request CA Rajeshwar sir to take the mic and speak about the technical session, which is around harnessing the value of internal audit. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think you can see me and hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll share my slide. And see the slide?
Yes, sir, it's visible. It's visible.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me at the outset thank Taranjot Singh Nanda Saab for the chairman of ISAB and Central Council member and for inviting me, and also the other members of the ISAB. And I also especially thank our chapter chairman, Nirla Bhatt, for choosing me to give this honor. If a speaker is excited, they say that it's all about audience. I'm really excited to see that I could do something for our fellow professionals. And I'm a chartered accountant for 30 odd years. So I really feel like a homecoming to do something for Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. I'll start with one Arabic word because I'm from the Arabic country. It means, the word is mashallah. Mashallah means beautifulness of the event and God's protection. So let the event be beautiful and let God bless all of us in this difficult time. So, and I heard Ankur speak in this just before me as a fellow panelist and fellow speaker, co-speaker, and he came out with one very interesting aspects of digital aspects of how internal auditors should be equipped with the digitalization in the forward journey. I really appreciate his content, and it was really quite intense, and I learned a lot from the session. There is one important say. One machine can do the work of 50 ordinary men, but no machine can do the work of one extraordinary man. So when you talk about digital and all that, there are some people who, again, create the process and help in the coding of the whole programming. So it is great I talk about people, part of internal audit. That is how, as internal auditors, we should be equipping ourselves. So that reminds me, when I was when a teacher asked my daughter, your essay on my pet cat is exactly same as your brother's. And my daughter is smart girl, and she said, it is about the same pet cat. Same cat. So, we all talk about value of internal audit. There is something common in all that. Only the different aspect we cover is from our own perspective. And I want to make a very important statement. Internal audit is the most difficult job to do well. I'll repeat, internal audit is the most difficult job to do well. Why? The expectation of stakeholders, expectations of the management, expectations of many people always put a pressure on us. Are we delivering that value? And sometimes we end up playing not to lose instead of playing to win. This is what I want to give an important message. When I end up the session, I want you to know that we have to play to win, not to sustain or not to just play not to lose. This is at my, Doha, old Doha. One important thing I want to tell you, old doesn't mean internal auditors never get old. You must be asking why. One is that we have childlike curiosity. We want to know what is happening, probably depth of it. So we have childlike curiosity. Second thing is we have healthy skepticism, that we go after the truth. We'll never be happy with what others are saying. We go after the truth. Third thing is we have to learn new things every day. Every audit is not repetition of the past. It's something to learn, a new assignment and new challenges, and we keep learning. Like Ankur said earlier, it is a lot of new things to be learned. So we never get old. This is a new Doha. But one common thing, you find Dao is again an Arabic word, the boards are there. That means the culture continues, but rest of the skyline changed. So what is that I want to say? When I took a flight from Delhi, I was working in Delhi in Maruti Suzuki to come to Qatar. Those days in an Air India flight, there was only one screen, and the screen that attendant announced, the movie tonight is called The Perfect Man. And she also said, it's only title of the movie. I don't know whether there's somebody like that. Whether there's a perfect man like that. But The Perfect Man, it's a typical North American movie where two teenage daughters of a single mother travels from one state to another to find a life partner for the mother, a perfect man. Whenever when mother says no, this is not good, then they go to another state. In the simple movie, there are two important messages I learned. One is look for opportunities to reach out our dreams, put behind the failures and other things, and move ahead to our preferred future. And second important message is perfection is always overstated. What is needed is constant improvement. See, when I left Maruti, where those days, 20 years ago, they were making 400 cars a day, and the value add was so much. So any audit finding those days will be not less than 30 lakhs or 40 lakhs. And, working with a Japanese company, they look for internal audit also. They assess internal auditors' efficiency based on the findings or savings, cost savings. So we also had a challenge to meet the cost savings. So when I came to Qatar, I thought, what is the value add we have in this country? But it opened up a plenty of opportunities to look at the better management perspective of 15 or 17 companies doing the audit and understand people from different parts of the world. We have 75 nationalities working across our group company. So it opens up. You have to take the challenge. That I remember when I was chairman, probably there was less than 100 CAs, 50 to 100 CAs. Today, I think the chapter has close to 500, or country has close to 500 chartered accountants. And same thing, India has also, GDP was probably gone up from the last 20 years, maybe 5 times or 6 times. Qatar also gone up in the similar. So there is an opportunity provided you look for it. So I want to say one important thing, harnessing, to bring under conditions for effecting. Harness meaning to bring under conditions for effective use. So how the value add, how do you bring that value to the benefit of the organization? That will be the thing. Okay, this is just a feel-good slide to show you that one is a Museum of Art, it's called MIA. Another is a Fan Art Tower, which is a Islamic Cultural Center. And other one is the iconic 2022 FIFA building, which was inaugurated in December 2019. So it was, again, why I'm saying that, I'll show you in the next slide. Look at this. Qatar is known for these 6 things. One is LNG. We are the biggest exporter and one of the biggest in the world to generate LNG. And LNG, 19% of the world's requirement is met by Qatar. And now there is a huge expansion going on with in the North Field expansion of one of the biggest expansion in oil and gas field in the world as of today. Second is Al Jazeera. Those who are seen or born at that time, 90s, when the Gulf War was, Al Jazeera came into prominence. This was one station which showed the entire Gulf War. And the other 2-3 things are, the infrastructure that got built up, the stadium that is getting up, and anywhere I travel to probably 45 countries on different aspects, they talk about Qatar Airways. It's one of the finest airlines. I'm not selling Qatar, but of course I want to give you the last one, deliver amazing. In 2009, 2010, Qatar was given award at the World Cup for FIFA for 2022. His Highness Emir, who took that paper, said, expect amazing. And in 10 years, now 11 years from that time, Qatar is ready to deliver amazing. So it is, it is all in the planning, it's all in the concept. So it's anything that we do has to have a planning and has to have and execution, and to do that, we should have a passion for that. So I would also like to invite all of you. There is a vibrant chartered accountants community in Qatar, and we are ready to host many of you, probably even at our house. You're welcome to see that. Now let's go to vision of the internal audit. It says, I will not read this. It's what is important part is the core mission of internal audit is to enhance and protect organizational value. To enhance and protect organizational value is the core mission of internal audit. And the definition of internal audit in different countries, it's a different definition. It's only to show that we give tangible value to organizations. And the standards of internal audit across the globe, different standards are there, different standards for INTOSI and other things, is internal activity adds value to the organization and shareholders. So the value becomes an important word in the definition, in the mission and mission of the audit. So now let's go to how are we doing with respect to the value, adding value to the organization. This slide shows internal audit time is focused in inverse proportion to the value field. It's shown on an inverse proportion. That means where value can be added more, we are spending less time. Where value can be is less, or it is only not generating value, but it's only protecting value, we are spending more resources. So are we doing the right time? I remember we, as a TICE here, I work for the company, we have a big workshop, we have many petrol stations and workshops and all that. A car comes to fuel in this part of the world. We used to have a board there. When a car comes to our station, you can do 10 free checkups. Or you can, when you come for something, you can add on something else. Those were like a tire pressure, oil level, and various other safety of the vehicle. But today, all these parameters need not be done by us. Nobody comes, because all the vehicles in the dashboard can see the tire pressure, see the liquid, see how much kilometer it can run. All that is available on dashboard of a car. So similarly, if in audit or in our internal audit, we are going to tell them what they already know, is there value add? Or are we only just protecting the value, or only like safeguarding the value? So it is important that we have to innovate and do like various ways to add value. So second thing is, strategic value adding process is only 22%, as I mentioned. Day-to-day activity is only 38%, and regulatory and compliance activities, where there is very rarely even protection of value, is consuming 60% of the resources. So we need to step aside. We need to assess only internal control effectiveness in some cases, and make sure that the core focus of internal audit is to adding value for the organization. I'll tell you how. So this is also another 3 value question. It's fundamental. You should start where value is. Then only you can find the value. So start where value is. So that is where, like strategic activities and where directly impact your ability to create value of an organization. And how value is created or eroded. Understand how value is created. That is insight for value. How do you provide insight for value? And third thing is look at the horizon, not just go back on the past. What emerging risks and opportunities to be managed, not on the past risks, and make our plans for the future. Even today, the audit plan should be on a reviewed at least on a monthly basis, because the risks are changing, the conditions are changing, criteria are changing, every aspects are changing. Post pandemic, it's much more dynamic. So that reminds me. I asked one of my auditor to do safety and fire and safety audit for one of our construction or one of our manufacturing plant which deals with metal and all that. So he came back to say fire and safety. He gave me a report saying how many fire extinguishers are there and whether the fire extinguishers are updated for the chemicals in it, whether it is expired or still the chemicals are valid. This was his report. Safety, we had an issue with accidents, of the people getting hurt with the metal and when handling and all that. So he came, how many people got hurt? So I was shocked. I asked him, are you giving, what is the difference? And whether there is a first aid box. These are very, very small issues compared to what he should have seen. He should have done a fire, he should have checked what are the fire hazards, what are the chemicals or other places where fire can happen. Not when fire happens, where the fire extinguisher is working, it's sort of much lower in terms of value, in terms of finding, audit finding. So we have to look at in a much broader level to look to for organization to for us to give organization great value. If I had submitted that paper to that general manager of that company, he's also smart people. Here, people are smart everywhere. So, like in India, so they will come back to me. This is what Rajesh, this is what I expect you to report. So we need to, as auditors, who has to be proactive. We need to look beyond the reporting what they already do. So in this, I remember, we had a interaction with one Michael Fikili. He's 2021 Hall of Fame for internal audit, and he said that he works as head of internal audit with 85 auditors in the North American Transport Authority. 15 billion assets, $50 billion assets he manages. He said when there's a water in the subway of the train, or there is a fire in a building, or even the train buses are clean, he said all that. When he is asked what is that you're doing as auditor, he tells, I'm making the Metropolitan Authority of the United States or North America the biggest, the best for the people who use us. So his objective is much bigger than what, as an internal auditor, people come and report to him. He said any report which doesn't carry a value, he just puts it aside. He even told that such a strong word, saying that he will throw it to dustbin or trash bin. That was this is a simple. It's not a simple quadrant, but it's a model which says that if your willingness to take willingness is low in terms of taking risk, and acceptance is high, that means you are taking a big risk. That means your willingness to take risk, that is risk appetite, is low, but acceptance, how level of acceptance of the risk is high, you're taking big risk. Similarly, the contrary is willingness is high, your willingness to take your risk appetite is high, but you're taking very low, that means you are not leveraging enough. So both are not correct. You need to leverage high to make contribution. You have to also ensure that you don't do something which is not within the risk appetite of the organization. Now, this is one of revealing things for us. Now, this is a validating statement from what I spoke earlier. This is a survey done by PwC, and it says that 77% of the people, board members, say that the involvement in risk, internal auditors' involvement in risk, is not sufficient. 77% of the board members or audit committee members say that we are not doing enough to contribute. And let's say 50% say that management believe that they can be internal auditors can contribute, does not contribute significant value to the organization, does not contribute significant. Believe internal auditor does not contribute. And 46% say that, okay, we are doing it, shareholders, we internal auditors as significant value. So what's important here is, it's something like we all of us need to know from our stakeholders or board and other auditees, are we adding enough value? Sometimes it could be revealing. When I did one such survey with putting as a part of the internal audit program, QAIP, Quality Assurance and Improvement Program, I was surprised. So many of them said that, I don't know business, internal auditors are lacking knowledge of the business. So sometimes it's revealing. Are we doing enough? So we are dealing with people and we should meet them. Sometimes in this time, many people are working from home. I had a session with one managing director of one of the companies on remote auditing. He mentioned that, very, very, very pointedly, he mentioned that if many management would like you to work from home. Because if you go and meet people and if you understand things more drastically, they'll be revealed. So they're saying that they are happy that you are not meeting people. You are not able to expose to more data. Your ability to look at the documents are undermined. So it is. So how do we go about it? How do we improve? It's a digital transformation, the impacts to new normal, dynamic. We'll get into each one of that as we go ahead. So as I said, digital transformation, big change is impending. As mentioned by Ankur earlier, big change is impending. We had to be ready. We had to be a smart auditor, and we had to be ready. The new normal, some people call it can be a better normal because we have gone digitally so much, probably in last 2 years, more than 2 decades. So our progress has been so high in terms of globally, in terms of virtual and technological changes has been so high that earlier what could have costed much more is today is very much under control. So in the better normal, there is, of course, along with it, there is heightened risk. We cannot forget it. And heightened need for new competencies. So these two are also part of it. Nothing comes free. It comes with a certain risk and certain competency requirement where we need to be ready. So now fit for growth. Fit for growth means right size to function, to optimize. Whether your digital is optimized, whether internal audit is optimized, whether the contribution to the management or business is optimized. If you look at even the excellence, business excellence thing, there is a way to whether you're managing resources or optimizing resources. So you need to move to that optimization scene. So look at the next stakeholder experience. I talked about it, and regulatory scrutiny also is value add. It's a protect function, because if you do anything wrong, regulatory, because your company could be closed. It could be a business risk. Business may have to be closed down. So dynamic business model. What am I talking about? Dynamic business. The business processes. What I'm talking about it. Business processes and services need to be dynamically definable or redefinable. That means it will keep changing. So we have to keep changing the business model. Now, for example, Gartner study says 75% of the organization are now selling direct to consumers and in a subscription model. Even now, like if you take Zoom, it's a subscription model, or if it's Netflix, it's a subscription model. And also it is another thing is consumption model. That's a new business model where you pay as per you consume. The new ERP or a cloud sourcing is going to be based on you pay as you consume. So it is the new models of business. Even in my own thing earlier, again, I don't want to universalize it, or it is not universally applicable across the group, across the Middle East, but there is something called rentier mentality. That means you live out of rental income. You construct property, rent it out, you're happy with getting rent. So, but today, those places, if you convert into a business, I'm telling you, even in a petrol station, one of the shutter, it was rented out for 50,000 rupees a month. So they were happy. Okay, we get 50,000 rupees a month, and we are happy about it. No headache. We rent it out. Somebody else taken it. Today, when we redefine the business model, because people are not buying asset, they want to service their vehicle. We took back from those people and started operating the services. You know what happened? That 50,000 rupee equivalent, we are earning per day instead of per month. So you have to evolve based on the business model, evolve the business and create new business model to make more value for the organization. So these things can come from an audit report also. Why don't you do it? If he is doing it, somebody else taken our place and doing, why don't we do it? Why don't we extend that value? Now this is something, look at the problems. Annual audit plan and risk assessment is antiquated, meaning based on the past. You will have to do proactive risk focus. I will explain what is proactive risk focus next slide. The cost of risk management is increasing. True. Today, many people are going out of job. Like the people who are, if you look at the risk, people who are working on risk, there is an ERM people, there is a business excellence team, there is a compliance team, there is an internal audit team. So a large organization has 4 different departments supporting to ensure that the risk management is done in a proper way and risks are managed, and it's upsized or scaled up. So these cannot work. There should be a lot of optimization, a lot of synergy between the teams, and ensure that we get the best benefit. So they also call it, we are looking at rear view auditing, like rear view mirror and looking from behind and driving the car. It's also windshield. You have to look forward and drive. So these are the things which is happening with the current timing when the cost has to be optimized. So collaboration between second and third line. I think I liked Ankur also mentioning how we cut across the line when it comes to digitalization. Internal audit also, it was very tight in terms of we are in third line of, today we don't call it third line of defense, but on the third line, but it need to be looking beyond third line. You have to look to first line, second line, and collaborate to the extent possible. So going audit, so they look at stakeholders' demand, audit process is manual, risk identification. So these are some of the, how do we do about it? I'll explain that. Proactive risk focus is continuous risk sensing process. Risk sensing, that is continuous audit, understanding the risk. Flexible operating model, dynamic teams with the leverage models. Even I use guest auditors. I outsource some portion of the audit, because if I retain them, I don't have so much work to do an IT audit or cybersecurity audit. I don't need to have 20% on my payroll. I outsource that job to outside, to a competent person. So that model, audit spectrum, this is a very important word, not audit plan. What does it mean? It is based on insights even after planning. You have an audit plan, but you get some insight. So you go on an audit spectrum, and sometimes it is go, no go decisions. Go, no go decision are based out of and as you progress based on the audit plan, your audit spectrum enhances your thought and creates an activity plan. High precision audit activity. That means, today with AI, tech tools and all that available, you don't have to go to the conventional system of random sampling and stuff like that. You can even access the data and get the exceptions. In fact, in my laptop, in every morning, I can look at 17 companies in my group companies, all vital parameters. I get 25 audit triggers every morning based on, to give me idea of some critical risk factors. Every morning I see that before I start my work, so that I don't have to wait for my cyclical audit to look at few things. I can ask my people, okay, I found something which is abnormal, put my people to do that audit. So that's the advantage with today's technologies. And when you work with the doctors, one tier, second tier, or top tier applications. So it is high precision audit activities can be that. Now, like behavioral science, identify behavioral trends, root cause. Sometimes I like, there is one famous CNN reporter. He says, never ignore warning. He will tell always this. It's not about weather. It's not about stock market. He says there is always dangers which you never understand. And there is a Malaysian proverb. He said, calm water doesn't mean there is no crocodiles. It means you should expect even the bad things happening across your company, which you are not aware. Now, there is something about, people are, fatigued to hear COVID. But any audit seminar is incomplete without this. Because it changed everything. It changed the risk. It changed the way we work. It changed the way we think. It changed even the way we live. So it has to be looked at. It could be fatiguing because you heard many times, you're fed up with it, and it's not a good word. And so global pandemic landscape is evolving. That means every day you have something new. So there is long-term viability. There is a business continuity. There is a human resource problem. There is a control environmental issues. Then supply chain, regulation, resilience. As an internal audit did internal audit give board a perspective on COVID, including with granular details. This is a question every internal auditor should ask. Earlier people used to be in companies, when they enter, they check your pockets or check with some equipment whether you're carrying any weapons. Today they're checking whether you're carrying any disease. So even going to your office or going to any building, the life has changed. The way they control things has changed. So did you give a perspective to the management as auditor on what is the impact on your companies, all these terms which I mentioned? So let's look at how it got impacted, how internal audit got impacted. It got impacted in terms of what they call it audit hotspots. Again, I'm using the word from COVID, hotspots. Many of us got familiar with these words after this happened. Whether there is a VCM or crisis response and operational response, operational resilience, all that. Where are we? So we're looking at, the risk has changed, agility has changed, financial budget decline, personal staffing cuts, and even work from home. And all that relationship stopped because we cannot. Earlier we said to have relationship in a coffee table or in a lunch desk with your people and understand some insight from their talk. Or even in the US they say even a water cooler. So your adaptability to things has changed. So don't pay. And I like what one Janita John, she's a chairperson of the ICAI. She said, "Don't waste a good crisis." He said, "This sort of a crisis comes in once in 100 years. So you should be equipped. You should be good. You should be curious to learn from this crisis." Don't put aside saying that it's a bad phase. I want to get this wrong. Whatever happened beyond our control. It's an external environment. But don't waste that crisis. Learn from it. So what does resilience means? Resilience means capacity to rebound, ability to achieve, and capability to succeed. Internal auditors, it's a very good statement. Resilience demands far-reaching transformation. You need to be equipped to transform as a visionary. They call it VUCA world, visionary, understanding the challenge, focusing on clarity and agility. So these are the things. So these are, seize the opportunity. I mentioned about the seize the opportunity, and we should learn to have crisis management. We should learn to know how risk changed and how it can be managed. How to simplify process from, compared to what we used to have earlier because of the work from home and other conditions, and remote working, data analytics, how we can use those data to make the life easier for the management, and at the same time be humble, be cut across the lines, to help them. Even to the extent that even as an auditor, we gave us some of our staffing or staff time to help management to face this crisis. So I'll sum up the lessons from COVID. Demonstrate great value. You have to demonstrate great value. In fact, in such cases, a positive pressure is a privilege. The positive pressure is a privilege. So you might have to work extra mile, extra time. Take that and make use of that. On-demand staffing, this I mentioned. I liked a person coined a word called Uber auditing. You have staffing only for the purpose. Like as you hire Uber, you get a destination, you came out, Uber is gone, you are gone, get your work done. Similarly, you have staffing only for specific purpose. Then scanner, tech savvy auditor. And then scandals during this thing. So these are the things which you learn from COVID. Now let's speak what company. Every company is reimagining who they are. Reimagining meaning reimagining means to again think about it again significantly to change or improve in a different way. So look at this picture. You need to decide the role what you're going to be. You can be on the front row or you can be on the third row. See, look at the front row people. They are excited. They are participating. They are enjoying. They are involved. Look at the third row people. They are passive. They are subdued. They are okay like that. So where do you want to be? Where do you want to be? Look at this is what the answer is. This is where internal audit can help. Internal audit can help to differentiate, focus on differentiate through innovation. They can also invest in agility, invest in improving efficiency, So these are the ways you can impact of it. So another important thing, I like this. Everything you say and do as a message. And what do you know about the business? Many people ask, okay, you're making risk chart, you're telling us the best practices. How do you know the business? So it is important that you know the business and make that every report that you give is something. So this is about an agility. I will just quickly go through it. Agile means flexible, being flexible. And I heard many people say our profession is not flexible as internal auditor. I don't know. Maybe it's a very sarcastic comment or something, because you say that you have the same field work, you have the same audit plan, you do the same type of report. So where is your agility? There are some places it takes 1 year to finish a report. The risk has changed. The data has changed. So what is the value of that report? Are you flexible enough? So these are the things, few of the things that we need to look at it. So I would say what the goals of agile auditing is: accelerated delivery, improved product visibility, increased team productivity, better management of changing priorities. Now see, this is something, goals of internal auditing, put it in. A big thing is falling and somebody is explaining 1,500 kilograms of material is approaching your head at 45.3 miles per second. By the time he hear it, the fellow would have died. What you have to do, shout out. Get out, and even push him. So agile auditing is to have more communication, improved communication like that. So this is about trusted advisor. I won't take much time. Trusted advisor is a new term. Are not born. They are nurtured. You can nurture trusted advisor. The very best are only, trusted advisor. And they give advice and transmission. So, they can be coached, they can be mentored, and they can be made into. They have to be the three things here. I'll only sum up these three things. There should be character, there should be competency, there should be credibility. Trusted advisor, then in that case, trusted advisor will remain at the table or get at the table. But for getting in the table where decisions are made, you have to pull your chair. That means you have to do your work. Your work should speak for yourself. Your work should push you to reach there. And this is the future auditors. In the past, we were focused on control. Controls used to open the door. We talk about control. Today, in future, we have to look at organizational value. That will only move. From policeman to steward to now consulting to partner to a trusted advisor. You need to be adding value. So this is another book on agents of change from Richard Chambers. Very good book. It talks about the skill sets and all that. For the want of time, I'll just close with some lasting statement. This is one important statement, that you need to be business partner, leadership talent incubator, risk tool analyst, and trusted advisor. And I'll give you, this is sort of a recap which says that internal audit, we talked about internal audit profession, we talked about value, we talked about impact of COVID, we talked about companies reimagining internal audit role, and agile internal audit and trusted audit advisor, which I just rushed through for want of time. I leave you with a quote from Ralph, which says, future belongs to those who are prepared for it. Let us be prepared for the future by equipping ourselves. And if you write, and also I said thank you. If you look at that thank you note, thank you is written on the sand. If you write on sand, there is a saying, the wind or water will take it away. It will be erased. But whatever knowledge, whatever piece of information you receive from this presentation, keep it in your head, keep it in your heart, and try to those learning to implement at your field work, at your place, at your workplace. And leave with that. This is again reinforcing one thing. You are welcome back. Welcome to Qatar in 2022 for FIFA. A vibrant audit community. Chartered accountants are here, and audit community is also here to support, to see the event, which is, you have only about 3 to 4 hours flight from India. So welcome you all, and I hope you gain some knowledge from this session, and look forward to Q&A for any other answers. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. It was thank you so much for sharing your year-long experience and expertise with us along with very engaging knowledge sharing session, not just on professional note, but also on ethical note. So thank you so much. Moving forward to our last technical session it would be presented by CA Amit Gupta. He is a chartered accountant with over 18 years of professional service experiences with core internal audit experience of more than 15 years. He is also a certified green belt from GenPact. In his career, Amit has serviced clients spread across sectors and geographies. Most of the clients served by him spanned across manufacturing, mining, metals, GICs, etc. He is and has been in past also co-opted member of Internal Audit Standard Boards of ICAI. He has authored technical guides for planning risk-based internal audits and internal audit of sugar industry, which has been published by Institute of Chartered Accountants of. I would request CA Amit Gupta to come forward and share his expertise and knowledge with us on the topic New Paradigms of Internal Audit IA 3.0. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, clearly.
Thanks a lot. Good evening, my fraternity colleagues and friends. First of all, thanks Doha chapter and Nirlay Bhai for hosting the session, and my dear friend CA Nandaji for asking me to be a speaker here. It's a pleasure, and I think from the bottom of my heart, I consider ICAI as my alma mater. So it's a pleasure to be speaking at this forum. Hope all of you are doing well and are in good health. Before I start off, let me just to share my screen. I hope this is visible.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
So, beginning of the thing, so basically, internal audit is an area which has been in existence for literally close to about 2400 years to the extent of my knowledge, from the times of Chanakya. In fact, the theory of checks and balances and independent checks finds the first documented mention in the book of Arthashastra, which was published by Chanakya. So that's the first and foremost thing. And from then on, we have come down to a situation where we are talking about internal audit 3.0. So I'll quickly run a video before we start off with the detailed technical session. For some reason, the audio is not going through. Nevertheless, the idea is what kind of changes are happening, what new things are coming in, and how the focus is moving to assure, advise, and anticipate, which is the theme of IA 3.0, is what this video talks about. So, friends, essentially the shape and complexity of internal audit, as we see it now, has been in existence from the period immediately after World War II. The profession has evolved steadily with the progress of management science since then. It is conceptually similar in many ways to financial auditing by public accounting firms, quality assurance, and banking compliance activities. While some of the audit techniques underlying the internal auditing have been derived from management consulting and public accounting profession, the theory of internal auditing was conceived primarily by a gentleman by the name Lawrence Sawyer, who was often referred to as the father of modern internal auditing. And essentially, the current philosophy, theory, and practice of modern internal auditing has been defined by different global bodies. They owe much of their existence to Mr. Sawyer's vision. With the implementation of Sarbanes-Oxley in 2002 in US, the profession's exposure and the value was enhanced, as many internal auditors possessed the skill set required to help companies meet the requirements of law. However, the focus by internal audit departments, publicly traded companies on SOX-related financial policy and procedures essentially derailed the progress made by profession in the late 20th century. Internal audit is essentially something which has, as you see it on this chart, has moved over a period of time. Technically, we take IA 1.0 from 1941 onwards, moving to IA 2.0 from 2002 onwards, and now at IA 3.0. So, moving ahead, the scope of internal auditing within an organization is quite broad and may involve topics such as governance, risk management, and management controls over efficiency and effectiveness of operations, including the safeguarding of assets, and reliability of financial and management reporting, besides compliance of laws and regulations. It may also include conducting proactive anti-fraud audits to identify potentially fraudulent acts, participating in fraud investigations under directions of investigation professionals, and conducting post-investigation anti-fraud audits to identify control breakdowns and establish the financial losses. Internal auditors are not responsible for the execution of company activities. They advise management and the boards regarding how to better execute their responsibilities. As a result of their broad scope of involvement, it may involve a variety of higher education and professional backgrounds. I can give my own example. In my team, you will find varied experience. I am a CA, but then I got guys who are MBAs, engineers, and that too engineers with different disciplines. Can be chemical engineer, civil engineer, mechanical engineer, company secretaries, cost accountants, architects, geology experts. So it is all based on the need. And as Rajeshwarji mentioned in the previous session, you have to add value to the business, and you have to partner with the business. So that is the whole theme on which it is driven. A typical internal audit assignment used to involve audit of receipts and payments in IA 1.0, which basically involved cash income and expense checking. Post Sarbanes-Oxley, this changed to review of business processes in IA 2.0. This involved review to start to end or cradle to grave of processes for all relevant business processes, including procure to pay, order to cash, inventory, finance and accounts, human resources, etc. As organizations hurtle into an increasingly technology-driven, innovation-oriented, risky and disruptive future, the question is, where is internal audit? Quite often, they are only trying to catch up, and which is the avoidable situation. What is often missing is the realization that organization and business environments have changed in a significant way, which demand innovation. Even today, for example, as Rajeshwarji mentioned in the previous session, what is key is you have to change with times. And it shouldn't be catching up, but more of being more proactive, playing a game like chess, wherein you're thinking at least a couple of steps ahead and not doing only defensive thing. So, without applying new approaches, an internal audit function is rendered behind strategic and technology developments. It doesn't meet the stakeholder expectations or needs, and is not rightly equipped to deal with emerging risks. By the same token, embracing innovative approaches helps to keep the function ahead of developments. Innovation positions internal audit to anticipate and then respond effectively to stakeholders. And also, equips them to address the emerging risks in a more helpful and impactful manner. Internal audit has been encouraged for quite a long time to adopt new tools and techniques and to develop capabilities which are required to effectively respond to today's challenges. It is equally important that internal audit develop a coherent vision for both the profession and the function, and such a vision is essential in order to drive necessary changes and to prioritize the initiative for function and the organization as a whole. So, which is the reason why we call it actually internal audit 3.0, the next generation of internal audit. A function which is as attuned to challenges of emerging risks, technologies, innovation, and disruption as the organization itself. A function which is fully able to assist in safeguarding the processes and assets as management pursues the new methods of creating value and delivering value. As with any new release of an operating system or an application, IA 3.0 updates which need updating offers new challenges, new features, and new functionalities, and retains the leverages for the best of the past versions. It may therefore be considered more as an innovative operating system that enables internal audit profession and functions to better meet both existing and emerging needs. And we'll delve a little more on what you are seeing on this slide in the next ones. So where have we been? Until recently, internal audit profession has not faced the need to innovate, let alone reinvent. So while we spoke about the birth of internal audit right from 1.0 to 2.0 and now to 3.0, along the way, developments such as COSO, improved capabilities such as IT internal audits, and data analytics, along with supplementary guidances, have helped to move the profession ahead. And as we approach the end of decade or unsettling uncertainty, organizations face evolving strategic, reputational, and financial and other risks. There is a need to continuously innovate and to change. The world is entering fourth industrial revolution, where new technologies, digitalization, artificial intelligence are quite significantly changing the business landscape. The types, complexities, and interdependencies of risks which are associated with internal audit 4.0, industrial revolution 4.0, and the speed at which they are emerging are new. The pressures to evolve in order to create and deliver value are new. The strategies, practices, technologies that organizations employ are also different, and all of these are compelling internal audit to adopt a new vision for its role and to remit, to maintain its relevance in providing impactful assurance and advisory services to the organizations. So these three different things which are assure, advise, and anticipate, they constitute the triad of value that internal audit stakeholders now want and they need. This has been driven by numerous quality assessments which are conducted by internal audit functions in different type of industries, in different interviews which have been done with significant number of internal audit leaders and audit committee chairs. And these are all available in public domain. These three key sources of opinion have come out very openly. Assurance constitutes and remains the core role of internal audit. Yet the range of activities, issues, and risks to be assured should be much more broader and more real time. It can't be that you do an audit now and you issue a report 6 months later. Nobody has any value for that. So it has to be more time bound. You have to be more focused. Look at what is relevant. Focus on the core processes and truly greatest risk to ensure that it is value to the business. The effectiveness of these, look at the effectiveness of 3 lines of defense and oversight of digital technologies. Assurance is central to internal audit's role, but must not be the limit. Advising management on control effectiveness change initiatives, control by design, so on and so forth, is also related to three lines of defense and falls well within the internal audit's mandate and stakeholders' expectation. All sources confirm that a strong advisory role is key to maximizing value of internal audit. The third part, which is anticipating or anticipate, anticipation of risk and advice, assisting the businesses in understanding risk and in crafting preventive responses, transforming internal audit from a predominantly backward looking function to something which is more forward looking, which is more of risk sense driven, is something which is key to the business. Internal audit becomes more proactive and through its assurance and advisory roles helps the management intervene before risk materialize. We'll examine these three dimensions in a little more detail. So, what is also critical here is also to look at how the people work or what are the key enablers. So, thinking that the same people who are operating in the same way with the same resources can deliver value that stakeholders need now, let alone going forward, amounts to failure of imagination. Internal Audit 3.0 actually challenges internal audit leaders to stretch their thinking. They need to have more broader, forward-looking people who can help to look at more deeper dimensions. And to adopt the elements of IA 3.0, functions have to truly understand what stakeholders value and what works in the ways that helps to improve quality, drive efficiency, and rethink traditional assumptions. The future of IA involves review, which encompasses the new age areas, moving away and nearer to the business processes. We'll discuss these in a little more detail. And in addition, IA 3.0 is also focused on the way auditing is performed. While IA 1.0 was pre-audit or concurrent audits, IA 2.0 was more of sample-based audits, but IA 3.0 is more forward-looking audits. So, the core processes, which is unlocking value through automation, the IA planning aims to balance the assurance around two features: core areas and truly great areas. There's some problem in my. Is it changing? So, the internal audits can cover only so many processes per year and often default in performing audits on a rotational basis in order to find time to also provide assurance around greatest. Yet, stakeholders need comfort on both the things: timeliness of audit and assurance. So, all of it has to be looked at on a more continual basis. And if using digital assets, core assurance could be automated, significantly reducing the resources needs to be covered. Cover these traditional core processes. Automation will help to cover the core assurance and harnessing analytics, robotics process automation, and AI to monitor controls and flag non-conformance in real-time basis. In fact, many of my clients, which were in the routine regular areas, have moved many of these processes in the last couple of months post-COVID into a more continuous control monitoring mode, which helps to ensure that things happen on an automatic basis. The internal audit is more focused, and there is a reduced dependence on the traditional way of doing working. So, the key benefits are that it eliminates the trade-off between core process assurance and strategic risk coverage. IA can deliver both. Number two, it enables allocation of resources to address the truly greatest risk. Number three, it frees the resources to analyze and do better root causing as to why the issues occur, including behaviors that contributed to non-compliance and to remediate the issues. Fourth is shifting internal audit's role from identifier of issues to partner in developing solutions, because audits begin with known issues. And the fifth one, which is enabling internal audit to leverage its knowledge, position, and experience to help business to improve the processes and controls. The advice component is comprising of four broad features in which internal audit can deliver new and needed values. First one is enhancement to 3 lines of defense. IA 3.0, the functions advise second and first line on the ways to improve their assurance capabilities. And while maintaining their objectivity and independence, internal auditors can provide advice and share methods and tools. The goal is to provide assurance, not necessarily as to who is doing it. So, whatever helps to do things more efficiently and effectively and as close to real time, something which is going to be relevant. Regarding independence, internal audit also needs to focus on they are not making the decision. They can support the management in taking the decision. They can advise them, but not really owning the decision or making the decision. But it is completely legitimate to assess the first and second line in improving their own capabilities. IA 3.0 can usefully shift assurance activities in many cases to first and second line, but then this has to be done properly. And as I said in the previous slide, many of the organizations are doing it very proactively. There were organizations where I think until COVID kicked in and until lockdown 1.0 came, I think many companies didn't even had laptops available. So once they had to move to work from home, most of the companies moved to digital, and this was the second stage of digital wherein they automated many of these things. So the next one is control effectiveness. Assurance around control design effectiveness is key. The most useful advice for business comes at the time controls are designed. The business benefits far less when internal audit weighs in with only review of the control design after implementation. Internal audit should observe these projects and provide real-time feedback. It's as basic or as fundamental as if you're going to implement ERP, coming and doing a post-implementation review is not going to help the business. Internal audit has to be engaged right at the time of developing the blueprint, signing off on the blueprint from the controls perspective, doing a parallel soft PMO kind of thing to ensure that things are on track and being implemented as they are supposed to be. And this reduces the burden on post-implementation review. So those are key things. The safeguards to develop independence can be and should be established by the business units and the committees and by internal audit, but internal audit should be at the table and provide its control expertise during design phase. Advising during change. Internal audit should also have a seat at the table on strategic projects and transformation active initiatives. And this is not only to provide assurance on change projects, but also to contribute to quality of discussions by either calling out concerns, challenging management approach, or maybe being a devil's advocate. In financial services, in some jurisdictions, IA has a right to attend executive committees and other key management decision making. So this is something which is a useful thing. The third one, or rather the last one here, is assurance by design. IA can actually help management to implement mechanisms in the business that eliminate or reduce the need for second or third line, provide assurance on process or controls. The ideal situation would be to reach a point where system rather than the control could be worked around and simply generate non-compliance reports. So this is something which will actually help to ensure that assurance moves to first or second line. Indeed, all features, virtually all features of IA 3.0 are interlocked and support one another. But before we move to the next section, I would like to briefly talk about another related topic, which is independence of auditors. So, in our experience, what we've seen is too many internal auditors use independence as a crutch, as an excuse to stay in their lane and avoid offering insights and opinions when most stakeholders have said that is what they truly want. This can actually relegate the function to reporting on the past, which is not the wave of the future. Independence is important, it must not be disregarded, but then internal audit has to make informed decisions about what type of advisories they can provide without compromising their independence. Typically, internal audit advisory services require the function to provide a point of view or challenge the management or to deliver real-time insights. These things can actually help to join the dots which others don't see in their entirety. So, or they can actually help to connect the people and be a catalyst. But then, internal audit also needs to be, I would say, more careful that they have to understand they have a privileged position within the organization and should not be making use of this as a, I would say, opportunistic thing. So, independence means freedom from conditions that create a risk of bias and freedom to have a point of view and to assure and to provide insights supported by data, research, peer practices, and experience. Using independence to opt out of assisting the business benefits no one. Under IA 3.0, the function can respect independence whilst advising the business through promoting objectivity, integrity, and professionalism. Last but not the least, anticipate. I think risk sensing and risk learning are something which are key. Delivering forward-looking insights using some of these tools can actually help the business significantly. Internal audit has literally unparalleled access to information within the organization, which increases the capabilities to use external data and an enterprise-wide view. So internal audit is an ideal position from which to anticipate the risk and issues that could affect the organization's ability to reach its goal. So moving on, we are on the last one. Just to summarize, the focus is to look at assure, advise, and anticipate. And we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for sharing that information with us and for breaking down the complexity of internal audit 2.0 and 3.0 regime. So this is what we have for today for our technical sessions, where we learned how it is important to evolve with the world around us and how important it is to keep up with the latest technologies into the digital environment. We also learned, got an impressive glimpse of Doha, relevance of opportunities, and the future vision for our CA profession. And in the last, we learned the detailed understanding of internal audit timeline right from the beginning to its ongoing evolvement. So I would like to thank all of our faculty members for taking their time out and sharing their expertise and their valuable knowledge with us. Moving forward to our next session, which is Q&A section. So I have received several questions from our audience members, and I would be speaking out questions one by one, and I would request our faculty members to take up that questions and answer them basis their knowledge, and if you feel that you might have the appropriate answer, then please go ahead. So coming up with the first question, we have received it from Satish Kumar, and he says that, can I get an internal audit tool which is economical and provides reasonable scope for analysis, fraud detection, etc.?
I'll have a go at it. What we have experienced as internal audit practitioners is there is no ready tool or a product which is available in the market which can actually do a diagnostic and identify what frauds can be there or what audit steps need to be performed. I think this is more of what knowledge base you develop over a period of time. So either you take it, either you generate that experience, or you hire the people who have that relevant experience. So internal audit is not dependent on human intelligence, though technology is something which enables that, but then human intelligence is necessary. I hope that answers. Rajeshwarji or Ankur?
I have, before Ankur is more technical person to answer, however, my take on it is, I work in Oracle platform and Oracle e-business suite. We have integrated with a Discoverer, which comes with Oracle, which gives a lot of, data interrogation or data analytics for platform. Also Hyperion, which works along again with Oracle, can also provide a lot of audit information, which, as I mentioned during my speech also, I get 25 triggers based on my audit say risk need. Like there are few things like say debtors or checks bounced or debtors whose credit limits are exceeded, was overrate the control, many other things, or asset purchases above certain limit. So these makes us to go better. So this, apart from that, ACL is one very good tool which we have been using for a long time. Then there is something called IDEA, which was earlier, but it's currently also very popular. There's something called Axeles from Thomson Reuters. Axeles. There are various other tools. What is cost benefit depends on the complexity and size of the organization.
Yeah, but then it has to be complemented by the user.
True. In fact, you need intelligent user to get information. What happens even when you implement Oracle like platform with spending $10 million or something, till you find that if the user is not intelligent to express the need for their data analytics or information need, it will not come.
I hope that helps to Satish. Our next question comes from Ashwini, and he asked, he would like to know the pace of IA to become completely paperless digital assurance keyword.
Ankur.
Yeah, I won't mind taking that. So, look, finally, I think there are two parts to it. I think IEA can only become paperless and completely digital as long as the organization that they're working for is completely paperless. But if you talk about today, most of the large IA teams or the consulting firms are using some sort of audit management software, be it Teammate or be it others, where at least in terms of the complete documentation part, it is happening online. Like for me, I have not made any physical audit file in the 6 or 7 years, and everything is digital. In fact, during the pandemic, I think the complete we do audits as the complete audit is now happening remotely, and there's hardly any exchange of paper. So I feel that the pandemic and the remote working is a great time for us to look at how we can, sort of remove the requirement of having physical documents. Most of the audit management softwares actually also have the capability and ability to generate audit reports from the software itself, and also have working paper sign-offs and manager reviews or partner reviews having being done on the tool itself. So I think in terms of for IA, I think there are many simple tools or Java-based tools also which are available in the market, which can help internal audit be completely paperless. But then yes, in terms of the field work, there has to be support from the auditee and the process owners as well, as they also need to be paperless to support that. Amit sir, Rajeshwar sir, any additions to that?
No, from practical experience, I'm a person maybe probably older than many of you, 30 years as auditor, as a chartered accountant. It heightened the risk. If you can use technology and it is the way to go, but there is a related risk, and that related risk includes to how to mitigate those related risks are like planning the meeting. Every meeting on virtual space has to be planned properly. Otherwise, it takes much, much longer time and meeting never ends and the value add from the meeting goes down drastically. So compared to a formal, you walk into somebody's office and have a chat and get to know the answers, it takes much more time. Second is security for, what documents you share online. What are the papers you accept as evidence for an audit finding to be reliable? So these are also concerned because it comes through a virtual space. We really don't know whether it's a mistake. When you see as an auditor a paper, we know the authenticity to some extent. After working for a long time, we know how far you can place the credibility of the paper. So there is, when approval comes through seamlessly online platform, it is correct. But sometime when you exchange papers on a Zoom platform or something like that, similar to that, or Microsoft top platform or something. So there is element of compromise or preparedness to accept new risk. So, and also not everybody is in the technologically savvy as as you expect. There are people at a different scale. So I think 100% achieving could be a far cry, to not even aim at it. But if you can achieve to a reasonable degree, depending on the risk appetite of the organization. I know financial institutions like banks. I know friends of mine who approve millions of dollars online, but their security is so much. There even the room at home is set up by the office, so that nobody enters there. There's a vigilance, there is a camera which looks at the computer screens and all that. So it is an era where it may take some more time.
Precisely same experience. I think fundamentally when I did the training, we still had not started using laptops or desktops. So, it was much more, I would say, effective if you are doing audit in physical world, but then reality of life is you have to adopt to virtual. And while it increases the time cost, it reduces the I would say effectiveness of audit procedures, but then automation is a way of life, and the way we see it, I don't think we have to stick to staying at homes or working from homes for fairly good amount of time. So business goes on, and which is where businesses are also looking at what kind of assurance can be provided. So my take usually is you have to build checks and balances. You have to ensure, for example, in my organization, if I do anything on my business laptop, it gets tracked. There is nobody who was above that policy. It gets tracked. It goes through the complete check-in layer as to who is doing what and who is not doing what. So both the things get checked. So you have to build all of that. You can't take risk with data privacy and security. So things happen. Work has to go on. I hope that addresses the question.
Yeah, I believe so. Thank you so much. And our next question comes from Pranay Sanklechra, and he likes to know any key matters from MIS of bank, branch, or concurrent audits to keep such evidences for peer review purpose. I hope I got his question correct. Make any sense?
I haven't had experience of peer concurrent audits or bank audits in last decades. Rajeshwarji, would you have any idea?
No, actually, I also not done a bank audit, but I've heard one of the pioneers on concurrent audit from a bank called Barclays Bank. He has 300 odd staff working across some 30, 40 countries, and he heads from the United States, the Barclays Bank, head of audit. And he has come out with a beautiful book, and also it's available probably in Google for people to read. What are the things which goes under the concurrent audit? And to the extent that even audit field work and reporting and even the replies are all automated. To the extent that escalation also get automated, to the escalation when the reports are not replied within time and all that. So, but what are the key matrices for the bank? Again, it's a very much vertical, business vertical. Coming from that, it will be better to answer. Concurrent audit, what are the things in a bank concurrent audit? I recommend him to read I'm not unfortunately remembering his name, but I can text you later. There's a good presentation from Barclays Bank, CAE.
Moving to our next question coming from Rajan Bhusari. He wants to know, is there any standard format of reporting? Is internal auditor supposed to opine on true and fairness of the annual financial statements? Is it under our purview?
No. As per law of the land, no. and I don't really think any of the organizations are looking for. But then, to a certain extent, this gets covered as part of IFC review, wherein internal auditors have to opine on effectiveness of internal controls within the organization. So that is something which requires a fairly good amount of verification of both the design and the operating effectiveness of internal controls. But then internal auditors do not really comment on pure play annual financial statements. There is a differentiation. And there is no defined format in terms of internally how they are supposed to report back to the CEO, CFO, and the board for taking a view on the IFCs.
So
You want
next
to try,
question.
Ankur?
Yeah, I think same answer. There's no standard format. I think most of the regulatory norms, what they speak about is that the internal auditors should report to the audit committee in case they come across any high risk observations or observations which can have fraud related angles. So that is the expectation. But in terms of the report, there is no standard report that is defined. Though there is a guidance note on IFC issued by the institute, which does talk about sampling methods and things like that. But in terms of the IA report, I think there's no standard format which has been defined.
Okay, I just add to what Ankur and Amit said. No, there is no standard requirement, but one of the important criteria an audit committee expects from head of audit is to comment on integrity of financial statements. They expect, sometimes they ask if it's something like a white collar crime. Somebody can, because now today business is so much based on the outcome or the profits and many stakeholders are there who like to sometimes whitewash. So an integrity of financial statements often becomes responsibility of CAE. So you can have its own checks and balances to ensure that there is no making up or there is no white collar fraud or things of that sort. Thank you.
Yeah, that would help. Moving forward to our next question from Prabir Kumar Biswas. And the various functions into an organization where internal audit can be conducted or any risk assessment can be performed.
You want to have a go?
I think all the functions are. I don't think there is anything in an organization which is not auditable. So,
essentially, this can actually cover all the operating and non-operating areas also.
So finally, I think, sir, in today's time, I think apart from the regulatory requirement, it is also dependent upon what the board and audit committee expects. And I think if they want the internal auditors to opine on any new initiative also, or any emerging areas also, then that also comes under the purview of the internal auditor. So I think finally, I don't think there's anything which eventually can be called out of scope from internal audit perspective. Depends upon the risk assessment which has been done, where the complete business operation, the strategy, and everything is looked into. And basis that, once the IA plan is made, we decide that what kind of scope areas needs to be scoped in as part of IA.
It is like there are clients who actually ask us to do a pure play audit of only the hiring strategy of the business, to hire or what kind of talent they want to hire. They had a manpower plan, they had an annual staffing plan, they also had their SOPs, but then they still said, why don't you guys have a go and look at our hiring way or hiring strategy? So it can be as fundamental as that. There was another client who actually said, can you guys go and do my digital footprint audit? So which is more of looking at social media, how and who are accessing it, and what kind of footprint company is developing through those digital modes. So it is as simple as what a human mind is capable of doing. So if you believe there is a risk in that and the risk is material, internal audit can definitely do. Only thing they need to have right set of people who are available to do those reviews. You can't ask somebody who doesn't know about social media. It's as simple as I don't use Facebook, but if you ask me to go and do an audit of digital footprint on Facebook, I'll be the wrong guy. You need somebody who's expert on that. Has the right talent and you can do it.
True, there is, there is it could be a view different from an external internal auditor and internal internal auditor. Because internal auditor becomes more of a management person. He gets to be part of a major committees or on the board requirements of a due diligence. So they can, depending on the resources we have, the competency we possess, and the ability we are willing to impart, then we can take those assignments. But today's world, as I mentioned in my presentation also, we should be concentrating on value add. It also often happens that even my own experience, sometimes when you go for audit, there are people in your CFO or someone else try to take you away from the core things and get into some peripheral things. They like you to consume your audit time. See, you've gone for a 10 days or a 3 weeks audit. They'll try to push you into some minor, not so material things and take your time away so that you don't get into the bigger, better value add. So, I'm not generalizing, but it does happen. So, we have to use our proper risk assessment and proper judgment, business judgment, and value add proportion based on our analytics and things like that. And finally, what is that we are going to contribute to the organization's business or the value. Thank you.
Moving forward to next question coming from VS Kumar. So he asks, during pandemic, how conduct of internal audit online can meet the professional audit standards? What additional validations would be required to conclude the compiled items with the prescribed standards?
So probably I'll start and then maybe Rajeshwar sir and Amit sir can add their views. So, we spoke about this earlier that if you see the last 1 year, I think most of the audits have happened online. And though I am also of a firm believer that when you do a face-to-face audit, it is sometimes a little quicker, and you tend to get better observation sometimes, because eventually what happens is the process owners in a face-to-face meeting become more, I would say they open up a little more comparatively and they give you more ideas. Whereas in a online setup, what happens is that the discussion becomes sometimes a little too focused and it's a little difficult to dig out things. But then in terms of compliance to the standards or compliance to a standard audit approach, I think what is important is to ensure that whatever we are doing, even as part of the online audit, replicates what would be a audit on field. Be it preparing a planning document, be it preparing a scoping document or working papers and everything. All that has to happen in a online setup as well. Also, what is important is that in terms of a challenge, I think the couple of challenge which comes as far as the remote auditing is concerned is that one is, as Rajeshwar sir also mentioned, that the authenticity of documents, because you are eventually relying on scanned documents, whereas in a physical setup you are looking at original papers. So you have to have checks and balances to ensure that the management is providing you the correct set of documents, and you're realizing on not relying on forged documents, if I may say so. Also, the second aspect is in terms of how you plan your discussions with the process owners, because there is a limited amount of time that you would get. So usually the way we do it is in our team, we before any walkthrough with the process owners, we send across a formal questionnaire before the meeting, just for them to be a little prepared. and then we ensure that basis some open-ended and closed-ended questions, we take out the maximum from them in terms of what are they doing in their day-to-day business operations. So the walkthroughs and the discussions with the process owners are very, very important as far as the remote auditing is concerned. Yeah, Rajeshwar sir, anything from your side?
Yeah, first and foremost is when you take up remote auditing, have we informed our audit committee or board about the limitations in terms of scope, in terms of there are a lot of things in terms of the scope of audit and the audit risk. Audit risk is the possibility of audit not revealing or not finding out certain things that is happening. So what are the audit risks? What are the limitations in audit? We should have a clear document or communication to audit committee or a board or whosoever is concerned. So that has to be very clear. So they know, even as an audit head of audit, I created an audit document including SOP, because we go to different site. We have to take care of our health. We should also be concerned about the auditees or those clients, audit clients, people's health there. So this is first thing. Second thing is, criteria for, what is the assurance we have. Like, for example, if you have like physical verification, earlier it used to be site-based. You go to the site, look at the items. Today, it may not be physically possible to have a physical count with a video camera or something like that. Even network may not work. Even if when you see from the video, and physically only boxes may be there. What is inside, you may not even know. So there are a lot of limitations. Third thing is good, clear communications. It should be transparent, it should be quick, and it should be clear. The communication gap should not be there, because in remote auditing, we should be in constant communication with the people who are under whom we are auditing. And the last one is like a lot of dependence on data audit. So it has to be a data-based audit or data. So what is the data quality? How do we ensure the data quality? Because even if we want a specific data, because these are all new requirements post-COVID. So the many data analytics comes from our putting things which is apparently not connectable to get some observation or probably reinforcing that something is right, happening is right. So these are the due challenges, and one has to be aware of it. I think remote auditing is here to stay. In fact, I heard somebody speaking last week. He said 20% of the workforce will never ever go back to office. Some 30% will always go back to work, because they are people like workers or mechanics or people who maintain things and all that. About 60% people or 50% people will be like, instead of 5 days a week, maybe 2 days or something of that sort. So that is here to stay for at least maybe a year, and even this will become a new normal. So we have to evolve based on all these new audit methodology which can be acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Moving forward, Imran Khan asked from where he can find resources for internal audit in real estate industry or any material around this real estate industry to perform the audit.
So Mr. Khan can actually hire people from either different colleges, or there is sufficient amount of talent which is available, experienced talent also, because nowadays most of the realtors, most of the infra players are hiring people and building capacity of people who can do technical audits. So typically it requires people with skill sets of something like civil engineering, somebody who can read the drawings, so architects, and some people with a fairly good amount of techno-commercial experience who can do or review the running bills and all of it. So mix of resources, but then these talents are available. When we do our hiring, it is from a fair mix of either looking at people who are available in the market or looking at colleges, technical colleges, engineering colleges, can develop the talent. So there are different avenues, and these need to be seen.
I hope that helped. Next question comes from Amarjeet Singh Bindra, and he asked if internal auditor can be company employee, and if so, how he can be independent.
Additionally, you are the best guy to answer that.
Yeah, of course, yes. I think the career auditors are all most of the time company employees. I mean, there's no hard and fast rules. In fact, there is also a recent research which says that something like 30 to 40% of the CAEs are not career auditors. They come from outside. They are part of the corporate planning or corporate IT or something. Today, more flatter organizations and all that. But there are still 60, 70% of the auditors, CAEs are grown from, there are most of them are in-house auditors. So companies do employ. How do we have independence? It's because the reporting structure is not to CAE. I mean, not to the CEO, but they report to audit committee and board, and which is part of the separate audit committee kind of. Not only there could be people who are specialists from finance and risk management. There could be top management people. So they get independence, and if there is of course, if there is a CEO can influence you in audit. It depends on there is a saying, if you don't stand for something, you fall for everything. So you have to take the stand of professional integrity, personal integrity when you assume a role significant. That's part of our even ethics, even as a chartered accountant, ethics and code of conduct. We should not be vulnerable professionally. Maybe it's more general, but it's a fact of life is you do get independence.
It's a matter of mind. If you believe that you can be independent, you will be independent. If you believe you can be influenced, definitely there is a chance that independence may get hampered.
In fact, Amit brought a good point. In fact, there is a statistics which says about 30% of the auditors revise their report with some pressure from the management. So, because many of these even auditors get administratively reporting to CEO, so they may get influence to revise some audit report points and stuff like that.
Thank you,
Ankur,
sir.
you want to have a take?
No, sir. I think you and Amit sir are perfect for this. Amit sir has also been on, I think, both sides of the table. But finally, I think we have to go by the ethics standards of the institute. And as long as the reporting is to the audit committee and the board, I think the independence is always there.
Yeah. Well, with that, I will move forward to the next question coming from Sugan Vashni, and he asked, in case of MSME with 35 crores turnover and loans exceeding 10 crores, what would you suggest? How much accounting staff should be there? And is it possible to suggest ministry to prescribe an accounting discipline for them?
Well, ministry can only define what the basic framework should be there in the organization. They can't run the organization for you. And frankly speaking, it depends on different parameters. I would not say each organization is same. So different companies of different shapes and sizes and different industries have different ways of working. There can be a business which is purely promoter driven, wherein promoter is a CEO, one of his family members may be a CFO. So again, his scale of accounting staff may be different from somebody who is running a professionally driven MSME. Secondly, whether you are using Tally or ERP, that also changes the whole gamut of what level of people you should have. So there are different permutations and combinations. There is no one size fits all, and I don't think government prescribes this kind of parameter in any case, whether it is MSME or others. So it will not be right for them to do it. Let's be very clear on this.
I mean, I didn't get the question right.
Can you please repeat, Vaishali ji?
Yeah, sure. So he asked, in case of MSME with 35 crore turnover and loans exceeding 10 crore, what would be your suggestion with respect to accounting staff? Like how much accounting staff should be there into that organization? And can't you suggest ministry to prescribe an accounting discipline for them?
Okay, thank you. I think Amit already explained. My take on a very macro level is that because you can't prescribe account stuff depend on the, like I rightly said, the application. There are two important things. It's a part of internal control. Accounting is also part of an internal control framework. So there are both hard control and soft control. Hard control is in terms of policies, procedures, standards, regulatory, and all that. Soft controls are the people, whether they are, people and management, whether they are the type of people, whether they are, how far they are, compliant with any, how far they are in integrity conscious and stuff like that. So it influences, the internal control influence both hard control and soft control. So somebody has to do the review before they decide what is the level of staffing and things like that. Thank you.
Next question is asked by Mahesh Kumar, and he asked, is it mandatory to appoint external auditor firm for internal audit and IFC control checking?
No, it is not mandatory. You can have an in-house internal audit department. I don't think the Companies Act mentions that the external audit firm has to be appointed for internal audit. So there are many large corporate houses, in fact, who have only in-house internal audit department with a dedicated chief audit executive with the usual reporting line of directly to the audit committee.
Thank you so much. The next question is from Radul Vilas Dubey, and he asked, how do we evaluate the IP with respect to apps installed on employees to measure productivity?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. So the question is, how do we evaluate the IP with respect to the applications installed on employees to measure productivity?
There are different tools which are available for organizations to evaluate, I would say, what is the working time that people are spending on the technology environment. If the work is purely technology driven, they can, or it is in financial services, they can even look at how effective the employee has been vis-a-vis the time that he is spending. So it is a kind of tool that you invest in, and there are multiple tools which are available in the market for this. Thanks.
Moving to the next question, Jignesh Gosalia asked, can you throw some light on audit in case of SAP accounting? Since COVID situation, everything is digitally recorded.
Ankurji?
Sorry, Vishali, I lost you. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, no problem. So he basically wants to ask the information around audit in case of SAP accounting.
Okay. So look, finally, I mean, that's a very broad question, not exactly sure what he's looking at. But then in terms of SAP, it is like one of the most popular ERPs as of now with Oracle. But then for SAP, I think one of the key aspects from an internal auditor perspective is to know how it works, because SAP can be a difficult tool to manage. It is sometimes with Tally and other tools, it's pretty simple to understand what kind of accounting is going on. As far as with SAP, sometimes it is a little complicated because there are a lot of background work which SAP does on itself. And from an internal perspective, it is important to have resources who understand SAP on engagements and who have used SAP before. Because what happens is if the internal auditors are only relying on the process owners to give them SAP reports and to give them data, there can be times that some of the things can be missed out. Like for example, to give you SAP does a lot of accounting entries, in the back end, which are auto entries. Now, if as part of your accounts and finance audit scope, you are not looking at those journal entries or those automated journal entries, there can be a huge accounting mistake which you might miss out on. Similarly, let's say something like a material management module. SAP does a lot of checks and balances and a lot of recording of transactions in a MM module by itself or by the configuration parameters. So again, very important to understand all of that. Also, SAP has a very strong access management system in terms of who can access what, how the segregation of duty works. Usually for us as internal auditors, what we do is whenever I do any SAP audit, and this is something which is always a quick win for me to find out good audit observation, is to do a access management or SOD review as part of SAP to see what kind of rights each and every user has. Are there any users who are, let's say, working in a procurement department who have access to the complete flow of transaction from the PR to the invoice posting? So, things like that can be looked into to add value. So I'm not sure if I answered the question completely, but then the idea from an SAP standpoint is, to understand what kind of configuration of the SAP has been done in the entity, and then to look for some observations. Usually, if a client has, if an engagement involves SAP, or if a client has SAP installed and I'm doing the internal audit, usually I'm pretty happy because finally what happens is that you at least get 4 or 5 good observations around SAP configuration itself, which might not happen in a traditional ERP. So yeah, that's it from my side. Rajeshwarji, anything you would like to add?
No, I leave it. But I work on Oracle, don't have much experience in SAP.
Yeah.
And so, if we talk about the current situation, like we are during a pandemic and we all are working from home. So, in this remote situation, do you foresee any challenge in conducting audit around SAP environment?
Yep. So I'll probably take that. See, what we have done as part of our clients is that in most of the clients we have requested for SAP View access in our own laptops, and that can be easily configured through IP mapping and all of that. And because what happens essentially is for any internal auditor, the comfort level is much higher when you have direct access to the ERP instead of relying on data being downloaded by the process owner and then he's sharing it to you on an Excel. You don't know which line items he's deleting and sending it to you. So similarly in SAP, what we have done in most of our clients, we have taken that access through VPN on our system itself. And once you have that, pretty much most of the staff is trained on SAP, or if you have some people who have just joined or who are not trained on SAP, we get them trained on SAP. We ensure that at least the basic reports, let's say a sales register or a invoice dump or accounting ledgers and everything are downloaded by us itself. And that is how we analyze it. So I don't see much of a challenge from that perspective. I think SAP access can be enabled through VPN in your own laptops remotely. In fact, that sort of helps us also because then what happens is within our team we can have specific set of people who do SAP analytics for multiple clients who are good at it. So even that advantage is there once you have VPN enabled SAP. I think the same can be done with other ERPs also. I'm sure with Oracle also that facility is there. I think for any ERP, I think once you have the VPN access, I think it's pretty similar to an on-field audit.
True, exactly. Oracle also work like that, but we make sure that to prevent any any intrusion or something like that. These laptops are exclusively, prepared by IT, that so that it doesn't have any other like game application or any movie downloads. Or there are many various other things which we should not have. And also, sometimes we take from the auditors a letter confirming for all these things. All the time we take from them that they should not use this laptop for other than these specific purposes. As a security, as an IT security. It's now embedded into our IT security policy also.
So our last question of the session comes from S.N. Narsima, and he asks, how do you work cost-benefit analysis for digitalization model of internal audit?
See, everything requires certain investment, and auditor also has to focus on what ROI he is going to give. It cannot be a pure play investment has been sunk in and you are focused only on internal controls without looking at what is the tangible value you are bringing to the table. I think that is something which is critical, and most of the organizations are focused towards that. In fact, when in my previous organization, when I had a budget for a certain amount to invest in certain digital tools, the first question which I got asked by my audit committee chair and not by my CEO, because CEO was very clear that if your AC chair clears it, I am okay. I have no issues. So audit committee chair asked, so what is the change you are going to bring about basis that? And this change can be as simple as either number of people getting reduced in the team or what add-on quality you can bring to table. So all of that has to be seen. And I think with the current situation of pandemic, with revenue and bottom lines under squeeze, this will be a larger question which will need to be addressed by the audit firms or auditors before they invest in digitalization.
I can just add a sentence. I had somebody recently giving a seminar, and someone asked the question: is it a right time? Pandemic, there is cost optimization or cost reduction. Is it the right time to invest in technology? One of the participants asked that question, and the answer from our expert was no. Yes, no, it is not. This is not the right time. You should have invested 5 years ago. So it is too late to invest. So as far as technology is concerned, it will pay many times over. I think, of course, cost benefit needs to be done for any project for that matter, because it should be known, because you're putting the money in the right place, and the returns are monitored. That's very critical for any project. Thank you.
So thank you all the faculty members. I hope that we were able to resolve queries from our member audience in the desirable manner. This is all the time we had for today's session. Thank you so much all the faculty members and all the joining members to take their time out for today's session and make it an interactive and informative session. I would like to present special gratitude to our host of the evening, Sir Nirlay Bhatt sir, and Rajeshwar sir, and CA Charanjot Singh Nanda sir. Being a professional, it was a great learning experience for me as well, and I believe that all our audience members feel the same way. And in the last, lots of our audience members has asked if they can get the PPTs which were presented during the session. So I will make sure that we get the access and we will share it across. And the last announcement which I will have to make is that to all the audience members, that you don't have to do anything else to get the credit of your CPRs. By logging into the session, you will automatically get the credits into your accounts. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, CA Vaishali. Thank you, Amit ji. Thank you, Ankur ji. I hope we meet soon somewhere in Delhi or Doha. I don't know, but
we would prefer Doha, sir.
Most welcome.
I give an open invitation to 2022 FIFA.
Yeah, Rajeshwar sir very nicely showcased Doha, a small but very beautiful country, and we'll host you sometime either to watch football or to conduct session in Doha chapter. So thank you, Sia Vaishali, for a beautiful moderation. Thank you, RTG. Special thanks to you for seamless conduct, and to entire team, Sailesh ji and everybody. And we look forward to have a further collaboration. Special thank in absentia to Charan Jyotsi Nanda sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good time.
Bye. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.